We've built background, including any culture that needs to be clarified, and taught the necessary vocabulary, all the while providing a lot of interesting and comprehensible input. What else can we do to help our ELs comprehend academic texts? Well, we can explicitly teach them learning strategies. Think highlighting, note-taking, annotating a text. We can equip them with ways to break down language in order to understand the meaning. The term strategies is often used to describe instructional strategies that teachers use as they deliver their content. But to be clear, I'm referring to learning strategies, or a series of steps, a procedure, that can be used over and over again by students to enhance their own learning. Research shows that students who consistently get A's in school know and use a lot of strategies. C and D students know less about strategies. So, if we can model and teach these strategies directly, our students are going to have a lot more success in the classroom. Also, learning strategies can certainly be applied to a variety of subjects. So if you teach a strategy in social studies class, it is likely that your students could use it in a math or a science class. Although our mainstream students greatly benefit from learning strategies, ELs truly need strategies, since they are using a lot of energy and concentration trying to break down the language. We want to help our ELs focus on the new material, not on the process of learning the new material. Let's look at some different categories of learning strategies and several specific techniques within each category that are especially effective for English learners. The first category of learning strategies is metacognitive learning strategies, or strategies that monitor our thinking. When we use metacognitive strategies, we anticipate or plan for a task, and we evaluate the success of the plan. Metacognitive processes then include planning, monitoring, problem solving, and evaluating. Some specific metacognitive learning strategies include advanced organization. Help your students to preview, skim, or get the gist of a text. By doing a book walk or other previewing activity, students see how the text will help them answer specific questions and how it relates to the topic at hand. Just as having a meaningful objective helps students know what they're looking for, advanced organization can help them begin to understand how the materials relate to the task at hand and plan for their learning. Another metacognitive strategy is using visualization, or making mental images. This is an especially important strategy for math. Think story problems. And monitoring comprehension. Many ELs read the words of a text and continue reading even when they do not understand what the words say. Good readers and listeners monitor their comprehension and take action when comprehension breaks down. Help students ask themselves, does this make sense? And if not, what can I do to help myself? A second category of learning strategies is cognitive learning strategies. Cognitive strategies involve manipulating the learning material in some way, and this includes rehearsal, organization, and elaboration. Often when people think of learning strategies, they think of cognitive learning strategies, as these are the most tangible and visible strategies that students use to help themselves learn. Some specific cognitive strategies include taking notes or outlining. Teaching students to effectively take notes will help them in a variety of contexts. At first, share what they should write down and explain why. Then begin to release the responsibility to students by having them tell you, perhaps after discussing it in small groups, what should be written and why. At first, students may want to copy entire sentences or passages, but through effective modeling and guided practice, teachers can effectively teach students to take notes that can be used later for writing, studying, or other purposes. Another cognitive learning strategy is mapping or using a graphic organizer. Graphic organizers can and should be used to help students with note-taking and organizing their ideas. As with other learning strategies, it is helpful to teach students which graphic organizers can be used for various purposes. Students can then choose which graphic organizer they will use in differing situations. Also, elaboration of prior knowledge. Linking students' prior knowledge and experiences to the content and skills being studied is especially beneficial for English learners. By having students make these connections and elaborating on how they help deepen their knowledge of the content being studied, we can teach them how the information that already exists in their minds benefits their learning. A third category of learning strategies is language learning strategies. This is perhaps the most important group of strategies for ELs, since they help increase progress in speaking and comprehending a new language. However, I want to note that these strategies can also be very helpful for native English speakers, especially as they relate to learning new vocabulary and academic language. Some specific language learning strategies include grouping and labeling words, such as a word sort for Tier 3 academic terms in any content area. Analyzing words. Help students recognize patterns in words, such as prefix, root, suffix. Teach students that specific prefixes and suffixes can lend clues to a word's meaning, as can the root of the word. And finally, teach students how to use context to make an educated guess. Although many of these learning strategies may seem natural to you, they are not natural for all students. Let me say that again. They are not natural for all students, for ELs and native English speakers alike. When my own son was a freshman in high school, he took notes in science class on the first day of school. He then folded up his paper and put it in his jeans pocket. When a buddy texted him that evening for the notes from class that day, he had to fish out his jeans from the laundry basket. In peeking over his shoulder, I noticed that he started writing in the middle of the page and really didn't know what notes to take. I quickly realized that I needed to help my son with both organization and learning strategies. Lucky him. Ideally, strategies should be taught to students as the need for them arises in order to comprehend the specific content you are teaching. However, I feel very strongly that the explicit instruction of these strategies needs to be included in your lesson plans. For example, if you have an upcoming science experiment on light refraction, then focus on making inferences and predictions. It's not enough to simply explain the learning strategy. Rather, you must teach students how, when, and why we use that particular strategy. Be explicit and model, model, model. Then practice, practice, practice.